But in the reality, when it comes to PSSD, is that there is no treatment, there is no cure or even help. There's not anything.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, Oppressor. You said that group now is growing exponentially, and I think it shows you the importance of everybody kind of creating awareness and sharing their experience, because there should be no reason that in this day and age, with everything, the internet, with all this technology, that we should all be suffering for years from taking something. No, it's people like you, and other people that share their story. That is the reason there will be a cure eventually. Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan with Moral Medicine, and I have Oppressor here from Brazil. Oppressor has been suffering for 6 years with PSSD from taking Citalopram. I just want to say thank you, Oppressor, for coming out onto Moral Medicine and sharing your story.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to ask you, can you tell me about your life before taking this drug?
My life before taking this drug was really good, and I didn't notice how good it was before PSSD started. And I used to have hobbies like playing games, things I used to enjoy, watching movies, talking to my friends, and basically everything just, there's not the same feeling anymore. And it's not like I am dealing with some psychological problem. It is something that's really wrong that's happening with our bodies, whatever it is. Yeah.
Thank you, Oppressor, for sharing that. Can you tell me briefly, when did you decide to take the drug? At what period?
I decided to go to a psychiatrist in 2018 because I wanted to treat my ADHD, but the psychiatrist prescribed me instead this combination of escitalopram with lamictal. I was really not familiar with medication, so I thought this was to treat my ADHD, but it doesn't feel like an ADHD treatment for me. So I took the medication. I was on the university at the time, and I immediately noticed the emotional numbness while on the medication. That is normal, something to expect. But what happened was I took that medication for a couple of months, 2 to 3 months, this combination. But what happened was that after stopping the medication, I was still dealing with this emotional numbness, like months and weeks after the discontinuation. And one of the reasons my PSSD is severe is that escitalopram was the start of my PSSD, but it wasn't the only SSRI that I took. So I took more medication, and that worsened my situation even more.
Okay. Thank you, Oppressors. And now, how was the drug prescribed to you? Was there what kind of safety information was presented to you?
There was really no safety measures because I just went to the psychiatrist and he easily prescribed the medication even if I didn't have any proper diagnosis, and he just prescribed like candy, and it was, I didn't even need SSRIs because I didn't have depression. I just wanted to treat my ADHD problems to help me in university.
So, so you went to the doctor, and it was just, there was no diagnosis. It was just here's a prescription, take it.
Yeah.
Wow.
He didn't tell me about any possible side effects on the medication, and after that's not mentioned to basically everyone. This is extremely rare that a doctor talks about PSSD or side effects on the medication.
So there was basically there was no care involved in prescribing this, no safety information.
No.
Okay. Now, could you tell us about your experience when you were taking the drug? So how long did you take it, and when did you first notice something wasn't right?
So I first took the medication in 2018. I remember taking it for a couple of months, as I said, and the first thing I noticed was the emotional numbness. When I took Citalopram, I didn't notice anything else but the emotional numbness. And this is also why I took even more SSRIs, because I thought it was just in my head, I was dealing with some, psychological problems. So I went again to another psychiatrist, and then this time he prescribed me fluoxetine with Ritalin. This time I had the treatment I wanted, and I took the combo as prescribed for a couple of months. And this time with the fluoxetine, I noticed the sexual dysfunction, genital numbness while on the medication, sexual dysfunction in general, like low libido, things that are normal while on the medication, of course. And the Ritalin was helping my ADHD, and I was actually more sociable, I could socialize easily. I don't know if that was due to the fluoxetine or the Ritalin, but if it was due to the fluoxetine, that was too much of a high price I paid for a couple of months of happiness, just not worth it at all. And yeah, I took this fluoxetine and Ritalin for a couple of months, and then when I started to notice, okay, now there is something wrong, I am dealing with these sexual side effects, I decided to stop. And I was thinking to go back to that same psychiatrist that prescribed the medication and talk about just continuing with the Ritalin alone. I went back to that same psychiatrist, and he didn't like the idea. He prescribed me this time sertraline with, and the Ritalin was kept. So I was like, okay, I am just going to take the Ritalin alone, and just not buy the prescription of sertraline. So I went back home, and I did as I said, I kept taking the Ritalin alone. And I remember it was somewhere in my room, the sertraline, because I ended up buying it. I didn't remember why. And he mentioned that I needed to take it at night. So I was like, okay, so my parents are buying these for me, and I need to at least try the medication. Maybe that could, I don't know, help anything that needs to be helped. The psychiatrist probably knows more than me. And I took the medication at night. I went to sleep, and I woke up the next day. I don't know how to describe that feeling when I woke up. Something during my sleep went really, really bad. Some reaction happened that day, and I am more or less on the same level after that night I slept. I woke up, more or less the same emotional numbness, more or less the same cognitive impairment, same sexual dysfunction. There's the default symptom of PSSD, of course, no feelings whatsoever in the genitals. And yeah.
And it was just from or that night, that one night, and you the next day you felt that reaction. Wow.
Yeah, I took one single pill of sertraline, and it was the worst medication I took, because every medication I took before was during months and months, and it didn't make the same damage as sertraline.
And there was similar. There was probably no. Was there any safety information regarding that this could happen?
No.
So what I was going to ask you, what happened when you stopped taking the drug? Now, did you develop any new symptoms after you stopped all the drugs?
When I stopped all the drugs and I knew about PSSD, I remember having extreme anger, like you just can't connect with people. The anhedonia is extremely harsh, because the things you enjoy, for example, in my case, like playing games and talking to my friends and just watching videos and reading books, watching movies, you just are left with no hobbies. The cognitive impairment is also really hard, because even for like reading a book or paying attention to in a video, yeah.
And have you visited a doctor about these symptoms and about PSSD, and what happened if you did?
So I visited. First, I talked to my psychiatrist, and I explained him the symptoms I was experiencing. I still am. And he mentioned, I asked genuine questions. For example, could be low testosterone or hormones affecting my functions in a way that I am feeling like this? He didn't answer my question, and he just said like, no, it can't. I also visited an endocrinologist to check my hormones. I think he doesn't have any fault in that, because it's not his job to understand PSSD. But my hormones were normal, and I had high testosterone, and so that couldn't be causing the symptoms. And after a couple of years, I was interested in theories of PSSD, so I saw that many people had something called small fiber neuropathy, and I had some neuropathic symptoms. So I went to a neurologist with the goal of receiving a diagnosis and doing a test that it is called small fiber neuropathy biopsy, that diagnoses small fiber neuropathy. And I was like, okay, let's just try this. And he asked me questions. I responded. Because of certain specific symptoms, he diagnosed me with neuropathy without any kind of test or exam. So I asked him about the small fiber neuropathy biopsy. He agreed. There's only 2 places in my country that do this kind of test. So I traveled and I did the biopsy. It ended up being positive this time, with like I have the density on my lower foot of a person with 90 years. So there's something extremely abnormal. And I want to mention that this is also the case for many people with PSSD. It is still anecdotal evidence, but as I said, like I went to a doctor, I asked him if this could be the case for me, and he agreed to prescribe me. So I didn't mention PSSD because this only makes things worse. Even if you go to a psychologist, you do not receive any help in the majority of cases. This is what happens from what I've talked with people for years and years. It is extremely rare to find psychological help. And this is one of the hardest things also with PSSD, is that people do not understand the situation, and even if you seek help, you're also not understood.
That's very interesting as well, and I want to mention that I had interviewed and spoken to a young man with PSSD, and he said that on his medical records, there's no mention of PSSD. So it makes me wonder how many clinicians people are seeing that have PSSD, and they're not even documenting it to add to compile data. So that's it's like you're being gaslit. So now, so you mentioned you've been off the drug for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And can you describe your current symptoms day to day?
So the symptoms got worse, especially the neuropathic ones, because it's a progressive condition that I develop after discontinuation of the medication. I cannot prove that it was caused by the medication, but they started after I stopped the medication. So I'm dealing with physical symptoms, fatigue, like chronic fatigue-like symptoms, anhedonia, really extreme like emotional numbness, and cognitive impairment. Sometimes the things are better, sometimes things are worse, depending on the day. But it is something that it is not livable with. You can survive in hopes to find a solution for this. And this is what I am trying to do, but it's something just not livable with.
So that leads into the next question. Can you describe the impact that PSSD has had on your life?
Yeah. PSSD literally made me lost like important people in my life, because since PSSD isn't properly recognized, it is recognized in some countries, some medical organizations, but since it's not officially recognized, people end up not understanding what it is. And since I changed, like as I mentioned before, I accepted PSSD, I was dealing with some psychological symptoms, because in my concept, not everything is caused literally by the medication, but since you're in that situation because the medication caused all that, you end up developing some psychological symptoms also. And before I learned to deal with all this, the anger and was taking over me, like the anxiety, because it's not normal for this to happen to someone. And yeah, I think that someone would enjoy doing, or things that you plan for your future, like doing studies or going to the university, they lose the meaning, because when you're working or when you're studying, you're thinking about something you wanna be later. Nobody studies, nobody works for just working and studying. Um, and when you can't feel that real reward, or feeling of, oh, it's gonna be cool to build a family, oh, it's gonna be cool to hang out with my friends, that you know that it will be not that great because you have a condition, and if you don't fix the condition, you will feel that way. Because in my case, for example, I have it for 6 years, and it is not, I am not recovering naturally from it. These things lose meaning.
And it's and like, go to what you said, it's the trauma surrounding it. You had, this, your life, and then you took this without any safety information that this would even happen. And it's like you said, the psychological toll this must take, because of all the trauma and how abruptly things changed. You mentioned the one night you searched Relene, you had the reaction. And then it's your symptoms have been like that ever since. So it's very difficult. And Oppressor, how have your family and friends reacted to your condition?
This is an interesting question. So I want to talk, how did I discover PSSD? I was browsing through YouTube, looking if someone was talking about sexual side effects after discontinuation of the medication. Because back then, now we have a community, now we appeared on many mainstream medias, and even the New York Times, for example. Now there is somehow, they are talking, they are starting to know that, okay, this is a real problem and people need help. We are human beings. Back then it wasn't that known, so I was browsing through YouTube. I saw a video in Brazilian, in Portuguese, talking about more or less this subject. And the video itself, there wasn't anything related to PSSD, but I saw a guy in the comments talking like, if you are dealing with these symptoms, sexual dysfunction persisting after discontinuation, anhedonia, blah blah blah, this could be caused by this condition. So I joined this group, and I started to know more about PSSD. And then since I now had this information, I now started to visit the forums, Reddit. Back then we had only 2,000, 1,000 members. Now we are growing exponentially, and I feel so happy for this. And I mentioned this to my parents since I was a couple of weeks off the medication, or in my first week. I told them, okay, what I am experiencing is more or less this and that, and I could be having this problem. They were like in my room with me, and I may have this. It is too early to say now, because I am only experiencing this for a week. But if I keep having the same problem, it is most likely, if any other cause is found, that I have PSSD. And they were like, oh, the doctors know how to fix these kind of problems. You will most likely find help for anything you could be experiencing. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But in the reality, when it comes to PSSD, is that there is no treatment, there is no cure or even help. There's not anything.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, Professor. You said that group now is growing exponentially, and I think it shows you the importance of everybody kind of creating awareness and sharing their experience, because there should be no reason that in this day and age, with everything, the internet, with all this technology, that we should all be suffering for years from taking something. There's no, it's people like you, and other people that share their story. That is the reason there will be a cure eventually. I believe if everybody had just shared their story like you're doing, it's so powerful in the long term on the macro. So I just want to say, finally, my final question is, do you feel like you had enough warning and information about the possible consequences of taking the drug to provide informed consent?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, so do you feel that you had enough warning and information about the possible long-term side effects of taking this drug before you could provide consent to take it?
No, not at all. And I've never met someone that had this kind of information presented before taking the medication about this possibility of permanent side effects. You most likely will only end up knowing about this after you either develop them or there's something close to you that has this kind of problem.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And imagine they presented this to anybody. No, I personally don't believe anybody would touch it.
And this is one of the reasons I think they do not present this kind of information, because even if you mention that sexual dysfunction are all the problems that can occur during the medication, most people would end up not taking them. Imagine if you would present something like PSSD or PFS and post-acute.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Oppressor, do you have anything you'd like to say, or before we finish the interview?
I would like to thank that channel for existing and all the people involved in making this community grow, making PSSD being recognized all around the world. We are everyone is united for the cause, even people that not necessarily have PSSD, but from all these similar conditions. And thank you to everyone watching and helping this project grow.
Thank you, Oppressor. I really appreciate you being so brave and coming out. It's not easy sharing your story. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan.